Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Today's topic is the definitive gold standard for preclinical research. We will learn about implementing the definitive gold standard to better manage complex preclinical research processes across workflows involving multiple stakeholders and multiple systems. I would like to introduce today's presentation team. We have Tom Klapmutz, Director of Preclinical Solutions Development at Xybion. With a background in veterinary science, Tom held positions in the lab as a scientist at Altion and Schering-Plough, now Merck, and in technology at PDS Incorporated and Xybion. The second speaker today is Bob, Chief Technologist at Xybion. He has a background in biomedical engineering and has worked at the New York State Department of Health, New York University Medical Center, and Synthes USA. He is also a member of focus groups within CDISC for the SEND standard. A recorded version of this webinar will be made available and links will be shared for download of the slide deck and the recorded version. This webinar is structured as 20 minutes for laboratory processes and 20 minutes for implementation planning. The next 20 minutes is for Q&A. We would love to hear from you. If you have a question, please type your query in the chat or raise your hands in the user interface of the GoToWebinar application. For those of you just joining us, welcome again. Over to you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Nagraj. Just want to check, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Today's topic is going to cover the gold standard for tox operations. We're going to go through the gold standard through Xybion's products for toxicology operations, covering total lab operations through the Xybion digital platform. So the preclinical gold standard is to create an end-to-end digital workflow and an innovative technology-driven automation, connected systems and facilities, data and information management throughout the entire process to ensure quality and compliance risks are tracked for faster, better, and the right costs consistently. This is a global strategy with local enablement. The preclinical gold standard is an end-to-end process where we can manage your protocol, your study, data collection, and reports. It can also manage materials such as formulations, consumables. We can track the use and disposal of those materials, as well as linking those to specific studies for billing purposes. The low-code technology of the platform is the core of the digital lab. The platform infrastructure allows you to manage people, quality, process. The animal management aspect of the system manages the procurement, the care, observation of animals. So we've truly brought all of the lab operation for toxicology into one platform. The Xybion preclinical gold standard can manage your contracts and protocols, subject acquisition, manage facilities and logistics, health and welfare functionalities, including IACUC and pain category reporting, research and study designs. The system will then walk you through and conduct the research, data collection, such as body weights, clinical observations, clinical pathology data. That data is then analyzed into study reports, which then can be transformed into your electronic submission. At the core is the LabWise execution platform. Utilizing core applications, external links, and databases, managing archives, the system incorporates Pristima and Savant into a single platform. Again, being a low-code technology platform, configurations based on your specific needs are easily done through Xybion services. The system's 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. It's GDPR compliant. And it also supports multilingual functionality for a true global system. Starting your Tox Transformation, today you may have multiple processes and multiple labs with various teams across your global footprint. You may have non-standard processes, siloed systems, disjointed data, which would in turn give you low productivity because of the redundancy of processes throughout your organization. This will provide you with a high cost to manage multiple facilities, systems, and teams. And then trying to bring all of that data into one system for send reporting has another set of issues. By utilizing the gold standard, you're able to manage and cover your infrastructure, and you can bring it to a modern platform. We can incorporate automation, reduce paper, which again will reduce costs in storing and also improve quality by reducing paper, allowing seamless data integration and a more consistent user experience through a standard application. Moving to the gold standard through lab automation, you'll be able to manage your process in a more streamlined approach. You'll have consistent systems throughout your organization, and your data will be shared throughout the entire application. So going from a study protocol to your study data collection to your study reporting, creating those final report documents or integral reports such as your pathology report, your TK report, all of those reports share similar data when constructing those reports. The future state of the gold standard, you'll have an end-to-end toxicology process, streamlined and integrated systems, data management, study reporting, and your send outputs, incorporating quality management into your entire lab operations, and managing one infrastructure. The gold standard value creation will reduce your costs by 40% and increase productivity by 60%. Through consistent standard processes, templates, and metadata for easier execution and faster study reporting. Quality, you'll have high quality, error-free data and reports within consistent, predictable quality. Reusable templates and protocols so that you'll be able to execute your studies more efficiently. Compliance system being 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, GXP compliant, and GDPR compliant. Compliance is inherent within the product. An easy-to-use system, it's created by preclinical industry experts for preclinical users based on years of industry experience and knowledge gained from working with customers. It's a collaborative end-to-end process in a single system, which makes the work environment more collaborative. And that's the key as we try to get more drugs developed through the system. single platform and a cloud solution. The end-to-end tox process, we manage several workflows. The initial workflow for a study is your study initiation. You'll go through various QC checks. Equipment management, calibration and maintenance can be managed by the system. Reagent inventory, validation management, and study estimation and billing. For study execution, we manage your vivarium, animal procurement, breeding, animal health. We manage formulations, substance inventory, all of your in-life data collection and post-mortem data collection, including necropsy, histology, pathology, bioanalytical assay analysis, as well as ECG analysis, and any user-definable measurement that you need to collect as part of your study. The laboratory data management system automatically creates tables, study report generation using the protocol information through a seamless process, send dataset outputs in EDI. The system also has the capability of a full document management functionality to manage SOPs, documents, user guides, as well as archiving of study data, which will include images, reports, SOPs, or any other documents that need to be easily found in relationship to a study or compound. The core support module of the system also manages people from many aspects of employee profiles. We can manage HR or hiring information, training and competency, management of tasks and resource allocations. The quality management aspect of the platform can manage your compliance issues, audits, deviations, CAPAs, operational specifications, and risk management. Again, bringing everything into one process or one entire operational platform. Streamlined and integrated systems. LabWise has the ability to connect to external systems that you may already have in place for managing some of that data, such as your HR systems, bioanalytical sample manifests, blood instrument analyzers, as well as a host of other instruments or systems. The LabWise platform will also be able to generate study reports, send data sets, and management of those reports as well through QC and QA auditing of those reports. Data management and study reporting, having consolidated data, one study registry and protocol, which would provide your master schedule, non-clinical study execution, study conclusions, send electronic data transfer, analytics and efficiency metrics. The data management aspect of the system can manage your animal use protocol data, resource allocation data, study execution, in-life and post-mortem results data, project status, QC, and throughput metrics, as well as study documents that were received, approved, and distributed or sent either to QA, sponsors, or regulatory agencies. Various reports available through the platform are pre-study, resource and planning, animal inventory, census reports, study execution, study status, interim results to sponsors and alerts through sponsor portals, study completion, your final study tables and final study report, and then ultimately your SEND data sets and your study data reviewer guide. The aspect of the system for the quality management, the LabWise QMS is modularized to address quality and compliance requirements. This is a 21 CFR Part 11 compliant system. The QMS can manage your corrective and preventive actions, deviation management, audit management, quality management, incident management, complaint management, learning management system, and document management combined provide you with real-time matrix tracking for technician and user training. The system has risk management as well as equipment and supplier management. Configurations can be set up to manage e-notes, various compliance processes, as well as internal controls, program and management objectives, compliance intelligence, as well as IT governance, change management, and at the core of the platform is a configurable business process management platform. Again, any workflow that you may have within your organization that isn't covered by an out-of-the-box configuration can be managed through the platform, as well as providing a single master schedule for all studies conducted in the system, whether they're GLP or non-GLP. At this point, I'd like to introduce Bob Friedman, who will take it over as far as the infrastructure and implementation planning for the gold standard platform.
Okay, hi, this is Bob. So Tom, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is describe how do we put this in place. And what Xybion is looking to do is to help customers implement this solution. And in a large company, this is, needs to be done, of course, very carefully, and in the regulated environment needs to be done with the proper controls. So the easiest way for Xybion to implement this is to use a hosted solution where Xybion is creating the servers, managing and maintaining them. And this has a number of advantages. We utilize Amazon Web Services as in addition to, if the conditions warrant it, co-located servers as well. This allows a reduced cost of initial hardware procurement because with a scalable system like AWS, you can start with an initial setup and add additional servers and bandwidth as the needs warrant. It also means that we can create a platform without disrupting the existing work, so that companies will have in place a number of possibly disparate legacy systems, and we could bring a new system on board without disrupting that work and then switching over to it when it's ready. We can scale it to the needed level of concurrent users, and we can create as well validation, training, and production environments. And because the connection is then over a cloud-based technology, we can do this without engaging heavily the IT departments of the customer site. We also have experience setting up disaster recovery sites that we have either local daily backups, incremental backups, and a live hot turnover that can be done in case the main system is interrupted. This also allows Xybion to monitor the bandwidth of the system, to look for trouble points in either computer performance or in space allocation, and to monitor security such as unauthorized access or large amounts of data transfer that might represent unauthorized use. So depending upon the size of the system, where we're looking at either small installations that might be tens of people or thousands of people at the larger end, this is set up with a combination of load balancing. So the NetScaler is used for load balancing. Citrix comes into play if we're including the Pristima, which uses a thick client. The newer portions of LabWise are all cloud-based, and so a local web browser is connected through a VPN for the security, and then into the Amazon services in order to get to the installed systems. We're also able in this environment to connect to clinical pathology instruments and other systems as well in order to create interfaces between the systems that may remain. But the main goal is to reduce the number of systems that are involved, and with our LabWise platform, we're able to cover many of the processes that you might have a lot of individual systems for at the moment. We also at the same time set up a disaster recovery site, which can be in an alternative geographical region, and this is done for two purposes. One is if there is a interruption in the hardware or the software of the main sites, and also if there was some regional disaster that could be planned for by having another site which is live and ready to go in another region. We do use data centers that are certified for hurricanes, that have alternative power supplies, alternative internet access, and alternative heat and air, so that the chance of one of these centers having a problem is greatly reduced by the robustness of the center that's being used. Setting up a separate environment like this in a cloud-based solution that Xybion is hosting, it has the advantages of a browser-based launch, so that the individual desktops of users and individual workstations do not have to have a software footprint on them, and less involvement of internal IT. That way, Xybion, who is most experienced in our software, is able to maintain it with a seamless ability to keep it up, and instead of trying to determine across multiple vendors where a problem may lie, to concentrate it in fewer vendors where we can quickly get to the root cause of any problem and make sure the system stays up. So we do bring to bear a robust project planning in such an activity. This is an example of doing a major implementation that may take over the course of a year to do so. We do this by having a robust project planning. We then bring in the different stakeholders that need to supply the information in this project. So the orange arrows here are showing the different stakeholders and processes that need to be evaluated, from business discovery phase to determine the exact processes to be implemented. The design, development, and configuration is to put in place the system. Now, we're not talking about creating a system from scratch. LabWise has many of the existing processes ready. Others are configurations. This is what we mean by a low-code situation, in that we have within LabWise the ability to do the process workflows, the data collection, the instrument connections, and the send output, as well as quality management. These abilities exist within the software. The configuration then can be into a more compressed timeline just to make any changes necessary for the local environment. We're then able to do QC checks on the configuration and plan at the same time change management and communication with the stakeholders as processes need to be adjusted. We're able to also put together different teams so that they can work independently and everything would come together when we're ready for a UAT. So a team to do integration, where we may connect to systems that still are important in the site, such as human resources systems or bioanalytical analysis systems. We can migrate in existing data, which might be from legacy databases or process or things like inventory of substances, inventory of assets. In the regulated environment, of course, the validation is a process that needs to be done very carefully. Xybion typically does IQ and OQ in our hosted environments. The OQ is often shortened by the fact that we are using pre-tested software that we are putting into place without a lot of new coding. And that way, if we're using versions that have already been validated, we leverage the validation documents that already exist. And then we work with the customer site to do the UAT to make sure that it meets their needs. We would then plan out user training and then a switchover plan as well. Then the last part here is that once it's in production, which is what the little star is, that hypercare is available in order to have a continuous dedicated team of Xybion staff available to make sure that your systems are running smoothly into the future. So one of the approaches that we use is a design thinking approach. The design thinking approach has been developed over the course of years and is taught in some college classes. The intention here is to make sure that we're covering the needs of the stakeholders. And we do this by following a process that'll bring us into the correct design. We work with stakeholders to develop the typical day or week, and therefore concentrate on the activities which are taking either the most time or that are the most prone to quality control problems, to make sure that those are covered. It's an ability to look into which processes are most likely to reduce cost and to reduce redo of work. So here we then identify the best practice for these processes, review the design thinking with the team on the project, and make sure that we've covered all of the gaps by whiteboarding the process. So this would lead us into the processes that need to be configured within LabWise to make sure we have all the important workflows covered. We then look to see if there's any gaps that need to be covered with any customization and any connection to any existing systems that would remain. So we do look to LabWise to cover workflow, data collection, quality assurance. There are some aspects that would exist still in corporate systems. So the goal is to reduce the footprint of the number of systems involved, but there would always be some at the corporate level that need to be retained. Typically, these are human resource systems or inventory systems that would feed into LabWise. So we discovered these during the design approach. We then create an implementation roadmap similar to what I had just shown, and identify as well any change impact areas by the different types of stakeholders. So a large part of this, of course, is the project management itself. And in the regulated environment, this is going to create a number of artifacts out of the project management that we need to make sure that we are planning for from the beginning and that we are then fulfilling during the course of the project. So the approach is to make a good plan to start with, execute the plan, monitor to make sure that we're meeting both the plan and the timelines, and then closing out so that we have a good artifacts of the successful project. So this includes making sure that we've covered the needed scope, proven that the quality exists within the system, that we are managing within the project the time of the people, the resources as well. We want to make sure that we're not interfering with the book of business at the site, and that we are, as much as possible, taking the time up only when critically necessary of the business people who are going to use the system when it's ready. We as well develop a risk management plan, which means looking into each element of the system, determining which ones are weighted by their likelihood of occurrence, their impact if an issue was not noticed on time, as well as which ones are related to regulatory data flow and therefore are more critical than something like a misspelling on a screen. So the risk tells us where to put in most of our time and during the validation process, and where we need to make sure that we are covering those instances with the best documentation of the testing to make sure that those items are well tested and provably tested. So this includes planning meetings around each of these activities, executing the project through tracking the testing against the initial requirements, and making sure that we are coming in on time, on value, and on budget. So of course, it means that critically is the initial planning to make sure that all of these items are accounted for to optimize the site team's time. And this allows Xybion to take a lead in project planning and working with the site's project manager as well to create an end-to-end documented project where all of the pieces are covered, and then in the end, at closure, we can make sure that the plan as it was developed was properly executed. So we do look at the V approach to validation, and what this is typically showing is that we start with plans, we analyze in order to create functional specifications. From that, we create detailed designs and even when the system pre-exists, we still need to make sure that we're covering the design of the solution that may be specific to the site. And this leads us to the build. So the build then fulfills the technical design, the physical design, and the configuration of the components. And then walking out from the V, what we're doing is creating artifacts that prove the testing matching up to each of the original expectations. So we make sure that the installation qualification is based upon the design that has been documented, that the operational qualification is going to include security testing, unit testing, and integration testing to match the functional specifications, and that map to the functional specifications to make sure that each one is covered. And then the user acceptance testing is mapped against the user requirements. That allows us to prove at each level that in the end the system developed matches the system that was planned out. So an important part of this as well is change management. This was set up within the large project plan as a team and a plan that needs to be monitored as well. The intention here is to make sure that things that have high impacts are documented for process changes that need to be understood. This often takes the effect of procedural changes and site-based SOPs that have to be understood and planned in advance for how they are going to be changing based upon the impact of replacing systems. We ensure that we have early communication with stakeholders so that stakeholders know what is coming, and that we have training planned out so that we can have a smooth transition. So this means building an engagement plan based upon the impact of changes, where the larger changes are going to need written out procedures, and if there are global differences in a global company between the different sites, that those are planned for and supported as well. So when we're working in the preclinical environment where studies are going on and we're putting in a new system in order to collect studies in an updated version, it's important to plan out a cutover, meaning that we want to know how do we decommission one system, commission a new system while allowing the book of business to continue simultaneously. So we plan this out in the project when the system is ready, when the UATs are done or nearly done, that we create a simulated study in the new system and work through any course correction that may be needed that's come out through that simulated study. This means making sure that we could track the study planning, the study animals, the observations, and the completion of the study. And then often, because of the critical nature of the studies, we would do a study in parallel, meaning use the existing system and the new system at the same time on a study, so that if there were any issues, that we still have the existing system data as a backup. We can then analyze that study that was done in parallel, review any results, and green light the full cutover. Due to the nature of the preclinical studies, this often means that existing studies would continue on the existing system, and that new studies would all start on the new system once that system is fully ready and greenlit. It's only then when the last study is completed on the current system that you could then plan for any decommissioning. This is done because of the critical nature of the studies and to make sure that we are managing the risks in the most robust fashion to make sure that there's no either data loss or issues that need to be corrected that they're taken care of at the time. Typically a new study with any changes to the new system would make it very difficult to switch over a study that is in flight, which is why we suggest continuing the old studies in the existing systems. So that is primarily what we were going to go over. I'll just go, these are just 2 slides here about Xybion in general, in case you're not familiar. So Xybion was founded in 1977, which means we've been doing this for over 40 years. We have business offices in New Jersey, which is our headquarters, Canada, India, as well as satellite offices in Germany and China. We now have over 175 employees. We're doing both products, consulting, and solutions. And we work with over 150 different customer companies in 16 countries. And we do work with all the top 20 pharma companies. We are very focused on the preclinical and life sciences industries. We are expanding, however, into other areas of healthcare. And then this is just an example of some of our companies that we work with. So Tom, is there anything else you wanted to add, or should we open this up to questions?
We turn it over to Nagraj if there's any questions.
Hello everyone, the floor is open for questions now.